Welcome to Body by Design. I'm your host, Blue Driver, a women's strength training and metabolism coach. I went from years suffering hormone imbalances, looking soft and bloated, to symptom-free and building muscle for a toned athletic physique. Since then, I've made it my mission to empower women to take control of their own health, hormones and body composition. So grab a cup of coffee and let's build your body by design. Welcome back to the Body by Design podcast. And today I have one of my clients with me, Belinda, and she's been on an amazing journey. We still have a bit more of a journey to go on, but she has had such amazing results that I thought I'd get her on and talk about her progress. So thanks for joining me, Belinda.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with where you were and why it was you went, I got to do something.
Yeah, I got to the stage, so 47 or 46 years old, coming into perimenopause, and I noticed that I'd started to gain some stomach weight that I had never had before. So my whole life I've been a bit of a yo-yoer up and down with my weight, but I've never had a stomach. It's all been in my hips and my thighs. And suddenly I got this stomach and my weight went up and I was getting towards the highest that I'd been again in my life, and I couldn't lose it myself. And in the past, I've been able to put my foot down, reduce my calories and lose that weight. And nothing I did was working. And I just got to a point where I was so frustrated. And then you popped up in my Instagram. I'm not sure why or how the God sent you to me, but you popped up and I just asked the question. I'm like, do you do any training? And you responded and then we started.
Yeah, you were, sometimes I've actually spoken a lot to people in Instagram before they actually sign up, but I get the odd random that just pops up and goes, yep, this just feels right, let's go. And you were one of them. And I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. So just to give a rundown of the progress that Belinda has had, she started with me mid-March and it's now late October, so 7 months. In 7 months, she's lost 11.9 kilos. She gained 3.3 kilos in skeletal muscle mass. She already had a good foundation because Belinda was already training a little bit, but she continued to increase that skeletal muscle mass. 11.4% in body fat, and she's actually fallen below the 30% body fat. And when we look at body fat, they say a healthy range is from 25 to 30% for a woman. That's not the gym look body that people might be trying to look, but certainly from a health perspective, that was really important. And she is in that range now, which is wonderful. And in total centimeters, she's lost 44 centimeters, and that was in 7 months. We started Belinda on 1,800 calories. So when she came to me, I said, okay, well, what sort of calories do you normally eat? And she said around 1,800. So we started her there. And what happened?
I kept losing weight. So I think just before I joined with you, I was maybe about 1,600 when I was trying to shift that extra weight. So I only dropped it a little bit because, the general rule, drop it to 1,200. It's not sustainable for someone of my age and my weight. So I thought I'd be smart and I'd go to 1,600 instead. And nothing shifted. So when I started with you, you put me on 1,800. I started to lose weight. We increased it. I kept losing weight and we got to 2,400. And then we finally found my maintenance at 2,400. So I lost, I think, about 5 kilos in trying to find my maintenance by increasing the amount of food that I was eating.
Yeah, it just kept falling. It was like a chasing game. It was quite extraordinary to watch. So when people come into my coaching container, one of the first things we do is, yes, we establish macros. We can use calculators for that. They're not always accurate, but it gives a bit of a guideline. But also we can go by what they've previously eaten. But when we're finding the maintenance, we're also looking to optimize their body, because often if we optimize the body at maintenance, you're primed better for a weight loss. And just by doing the optimizing through food strategies, balancing the blood sugar, adequate calories is one as well, making sure we're getting enough protein, making sure the meal spread's great, all these things that we do, a couple of targeted supplements, we don't go crazy on them, and a few key foods in the pro-metabolic, liver, oysters, collagen are all great things for us. It optimizes the body, and Belinda's body was responding so well to it that we were chasing these calories. So yeah, 2,400.
Yeah,
which
is
amazing.
an amazing amount of food to eat. Very daunting to start with. It's a lot of food on your plate, but ultimately it's awesome because you're never hungry.
Yeah, isn't it? And you've got so much food selection when you can do that. Talk about some of the foods that you eat, because I think when people think about, eating healthy and eating clean, they have this vision of big plates of salad and lots of broccoli, and a lot of this food is really harsh on your gut, and it's actually not got a lot of bioavailable nutrients, which is where we go wrong. We got to put nutrients into our body. So what sort of foods were you eating?
Yeah, so I think when I started, it was more about the volume. Let's fill up on things. So it was a lot of salads. It was broccoli that was cooked lightly, so it wasn't cooked down and easily digestible. So I had a lot of bloating. And then when I joined with you, we switched that up. It was more easily digestible carbs, so potatoes, pumpkin. I had some rice in there, a lot of protein. I generally get my protein from meats and meat sources instead of the collagen because I don't react as well to that. And then the other things, so the yogurt and the berries with the honey, the brownie for dessert every night, a lovely apple crumble, all these really good things that people think you can't eat. So I do obviously have friends asking me, what are you eating? You're obviously not eating carbs. And I'm like, most of the food that I eat is carbs. I'm eating so many carbs. I'm having dessert every day. Beautiful, luscious chocolate brownie. It's and it's ridiculous that the weight has just been dropping off eating all of these foods that normally are eaten.
It's amazing when you hear people talk about, eating things like brownies and custards and all these things, but when they're a clean homemade one and you look at what's in them, they're all full of nutritious foods anyway. Do we overeat on them? Well, no, because they are high calorie as well, but we don't need to cut them out of our diet. And when you don't restrict yourself, you don't crave it either.
Yeah, and my chocolate, my every day, every afternoon chocolate's there. My Lindt 70% dark chocolate, 2 bits every day. So I don't ever have chocolate cravings, which is amazing.
I live for my chocolate. Chocolate and coffee is my world. And I do the same. I'm just, if I can have chocolate every day, I'm happy. All the rest is fine. I mean, I heard you talk about like your proteins and your potatoes and your pumpkins. And I mean, all that sounds much more appealing than broccoli and salad to me anyway. But then you've got these nice foods on top of it. And I'm happy to eat whatever as long as I can have my chocolate. So same as you program that in. So we teach you how to meal plan in advance to be planned so you know what you're eating. You're not chasing your tail. I hear a lot of people talk about, I don't like to track macros. It's stressful. What's been your experience with tracking macros and fitting good food in and whether it's stressful or not?
So I'm a planner, so I do track and I have been tracking for many years. So as I came into this, I didn't find it difficult, but I don't think generally overall it's difficult anyway. The apps that they have out there make it so easy for you. You just need to start with a basic plan. And literally every week, Monday to Thursday, I eat the same thing. And it's not the same thing every day. It's the same thing every Monday, same thing every Tuesday. So my meals at dinner switch up, my lunches switch up. But I know every Monday to Thursday, I've got the same plan. So it makes life easy. On the weekend when I meal prep, I know exactly what I need to meal prep. And so for me, counting the macros is not hard because I've already got kind of set menus for the week planned.
I think most people do. If they actually sat down and looked at it and they looked at their repertoire of dinners, they'd probably have a fortnight worth of dinners anyway that they're just eating in rotation.
Yeah. And I have the same snacks, the breakfast, that's all the same for me. So it just makes life very easy. But because they're so tasty, it's not something that I get bored of. So originally when I started with you, you're like, add honey to your breakfast, to your yogurt and berries. I'm like, oh, that's disgusting because I've never enjoyed honey. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll put 5 grams on there. And you're like, put 20. And I'm like, no, fine. Mix it in. I'm like, oh, this is actually really quite lovely. But it's something that I would never have tried myself because I didn't enjoy the taste of honey. But mixing it in with the Greek yogurt, it gives that real sweetness instead of the tartness. And I found it, I'm finding things that I wouldn't have tried in the past, which has made life easy.
I think we get a perception as well, and I think when it's perceived like sugars and honey, even honey gets a bad rap that it's bad for you. And I think when that perception is out there, we get trained to thinking we don't like it as well. And I think once we flip our thinking, it opens us up to new things. There's actually some great qualities in honey. It's quite calorie dense. You don't want to go over the top with it. You still want to be within your calories, but it adds a great sweetness to a lot of other things like Greek yogurt, which makes it really good. Yeah. So after we chased your calories for a very long time, got you at maintenance, what were some of the non-scale wins that you've had from this by doing that optimization phase first?
I think that I've noticed that after coming out of my deficit that my sleep has decreased a lot. So when I started eating more food, it increased. And when we went through the deficit and I started decreasing that food, sleep has gotten really bad again.
Yeah.
So, my body obviously loves food and it needs it to sleep. So that was one good benefit there. And just generally just feeling better. So as I started to notice the weight coming off, I had people making comments about I was holding myself differently as I was walking. They could tell just not from the way my clothes fit, but just the way I was presenting myself a little bit more confidently, because I did know that I was so uncomfortable when I hit the top weight that I was at recently. And, I tried to shrink in on myself, which is quite hard to do because I'm a tall person. So I'm quite visible. And it just, people say, oh, you carry the weight well, but when you're carrying extra weight yourself and you're not comfortable, it's really, it's really depressing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've kind of found that kind of slid by the wayside. I started to feel better about just myself and the way that things were progressing, and noticed the muscle was coming back, which was great. So.
And when we went into your deficit, it wasn't all. So the idea is that we optimize people, which is what we've done with Belinda, and get you ready for a deficit. Whether we like it or not, a deficit is stressful on your body. It's harder to eat less, especially when you've just gotten used to eating a lot more and feeling good and sleeping good, and you're like, your sleep's improved, and all of a sudden you're going to reduce the food, and you do have to ride that way, but it's for a defined short period of time. I've just lost my total train of thought. That's good, isn't it?
No, but that's right. Like as I started the deficit, I didn't notice, a big change, because I went from 2,400 calories to 21. So I was still losing weight on a high deficit. Like, even though I was in deficit, it was still quite a high amount of calories. Yeah. And I think we did that for, 4 to 6 weeks. It was quite a long period of time, and I kept losing weight. And then it just slowed down a little bit. So we dropped to 1,900. And I think that's when I started to notice a little bit more that the sleep was going. So it's just as we started to get lower and lower. And then for the final push, we went to 1,700 for the last, 2-3 weeks. And, that was torture. And
realistically, you could have just quite easily carried on at 1,900 and not have dropped that low.
Yeah. And I look at this experience doing that, and that was only for a short period of time, but I would suggest that maybe for at least 5 years of my adult life or more, I've lived at 1,200 calories trying to lose weight. And I would think about how my body reacted after 2 weeks at 1,700 and going the further down to 1,200. I mean, how miserable is that? That's what you're told to do to lose weight. And it's just ridiculous.
I don't think people actually realize how crappy they feel on such low calories until you truly feel good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then, like you say, going down to 1,700, how the hell did you do it when you were doing on 12? Well, you weren't, because like you say, it's not sustainable. You do it for a certain period of time, and then the binging and the craving comes, and then you end up overshooting on your calories because you haven't been able to sustain that 1,200. And it's not fueling your body. I remember you having a conversation with me. I know where I was going with my train of thought before. It was around deficits are hard, but you had some extra challenges through yours. So you had a couple of niggles and injuries. You got sick. Now, you were talking to your physio. This is when my thoughts are all linking back together. You were talking to your physio. I think it might have been your physio that was concerned when you said you're in a deficit. He was concerned about the repair on your injury. Yes. And he didn't want you being low. I'm sure he gets all these women in there that are on like stupid 1,200 calories, and you've gone, I think you might have even been on 2,100 at that stage still.
I think I was, yes.
And he was a little bit shocked.
Yeah, absolutely, because I was going through, and I mean, he was only a young guy, and I think that kind of helped with his understanding, because he's not in the old school of get on 1,200 calories and lose weight. So he's got a little bit more knowledge about more recent studies. And, that's not healthy and sustainable. So he was like, oh, if you're in a deficit, your body's not going to repair itself. I'm like, well, I am, but I'm still quite high in calories. And yeah, he was shocked in hearing that because he was expecting me to be quite low. Yeah.
Because at that low volume, not only, yes, okay, you're in a deficit, so we've got calories in, calories out. It's the amount of nutrients you're getting into your body. And this was one of the things that in your priming phase, your optimization phase, which has been so beneficial to you, bringing the calories up first means that when you go into a deficit, you don't have to drop it as far because you actually just drop by a percentage. It's not a rounded 1,200 calorie number. If you're a person eating 2,500 calories, you're just not going to need to drop it that far for your body to move. So it really benefits you doing that. And it means that you're getting enough nutrition going into your body that your body can sustain the deficit for longer. One, the cravings don't come as hard because you are getting nutrition in. It's longer before your hormones go crazy and your gut goes off, because when we don't have enough nutrition going into our body, because the volume of food, let alone the quality of food, but sheer volume of food is just not enough. Even eating all these wonderful nutrient dense foods that you were eating, if you still only ate 1,200 calories, the total nutrients in your body is not going to be enough. So can see where he was coming from, that he wanted your body to be able to repair, which is additional vitamins, minerals, and everything that it needs to repair, that he, in his mind, if it's 1,200 calories, there's not enough to sustain you, let alone repair. 2,100, you were putting a good amount away to get enough nutrition into you to sustain.
I certainly was. Yeah. And I think the other thing I found through this was that for some reason in my head, I thought it was a good idea to train fasted. And so when I came into you, I was training, I would go down to my local gym and I'd do a HIIT session for an hour, and then I'd follow that up with a weight session for an hour. And these were classes that we were doing. And I'd come home and I'd be starving and have breakfast. And I look at it before I went into the deficit and after I went into the deficit, and the amount of strength I felt when I fueled myself before I trained with more food. And then, because it's obviously I can have the same amount of protein but more carbs. Yep. And then when I went into the deficit and the carbs dropped, just the amount of strength that I felt I had lost because I hadn't fueled up with all of those carbs beforehand. So that was quite an eye-opener for me when I used to do 2 hours of fasted training, like on a Saturday. So yeah,
you must not enjoy training like that at all.
I think it was a group training situation, so it was more it was quite fun with the people around it, but I realized how probably much more benefit I would have had I trained not fast.
Yeah, fueled when you train is always so much better. I love the feeling of being really well fueled and going into a lifting session and just smashing PBs. So good. So good. Yeah, but one of the strategies we did use with you, because, talking about this strength loss, you do when you're not fueled properly. So this is one of the things I teach women, is how to fuel yourself properly for pre-training and post-recovery. And that's where most of your muscle growth. So you gained 3.3 kilos of skeletal muscle mass, and that's through adequate fueling and recovery processes. When we go into a deficit, the mindset has to change, and you've just explained it there why, because you went in and it's like everything felt hard, everything feels heavy, you feel like you're losing strength, but we want to tell our body that we want to keep that muscle mass. So we kind of had a plan that when things got too tough, you could alter your set strategy. But the whole idea is not go in and smash yourself when you're in a deficit. You need to protect yourself when you're in a deficit and just maintain those weights. And I think that's another place that people go wrong. They try and reduce all their calories and then get into the gym and continue to reach for PBs. But if you do that, you're going to end up in a big energy hole that you can't dig yourself out of and you're not recovering from. What was it like? What was your thought process when I'm telling you, I don't want you to get PBs?
I think I understood, because it was, and I think I understood a little bit more as I went into the deficit, as I noticed that the strength wasn't, probably not the strength, but the energy behind the strength wasn't there. So I kind of noticed as I went through, and, 1 week I, for some reason, felt super strong and I did 1 extra rep and I'm like, why did I do that? Because I'm not going to be able to do that next week. So I understood it more as I went through the process, and that, yes, I'm not going to have the strength to do this, and I'm lucky if I can maintain the same levels, which I did maintain. So I was quite happy with that. I never dropped 1 or 2 exercises, but that was because of an injury, so I had to drop the weights there, but the rest of them I was able to maintain through, which was good.
Yeah, so which essentially means if you didn't drop anything, it means you didn't lose your muscle mass. But we did adapt a bit for you, so you got a flu as well in there. Was it a flu or a cold or something?
I did, yes.
You did. So it's been a rough deficit. I'm gonna say Belinda has been like the star, one of my star pupils. I say jump, she says how high, and she just goes. She trusts and does it, but it wasn't without. As much as you got amazing results, it wasn't without its challenges. So we've just spoken about injuries, and there was a lot of adaptation that we had to do, which is one of the things we obviously try and do with everyone, is work around them. There's no point flogging someone if they don't have the capability in whatever sense. We got to meet people where they're at. So we did some adaptation there, but you also had a flu as well.
Yes. So, I had that, which then caused inflammation and caused a new injury that I'd never had before. And that was the visit to the physio, which I still do have some niggles around that, but it's just been working around that and figuring out what I can do. And I also work from home, so I've got my home gym. So I'm not in the actual gym and having access to everything. So you've kind of adapted around that as well for me. I think I've got a good little setup, but it is little. It's not by no means a commercial gym setup. So, you've worked with me to find the right exercises that I can do from home and still get those benefits, which has been awesome.
Yeah. So, if you want to work from home, I said that to you from the beginning, we can make it work. You did get the odd extra piece along the way just to branch out in some variety, so we could have something other than the cables in there. Belinda does have some really good key pieces at home. And I think you can work out at home, especially if you're not interested in getting mass amounts of variety and changing every 4 weeks your exercises, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. You should be sticking with things longer. So being at home and having that equipment has served you in that purpose. But she does have some very specific key pieces. But like you say, it's little. We can still work with that. And 3.3 skeletal muscle mass increase. So it works. It can work. And like you say, it's about meeting people where they're at. And we've been able to do that with you.
Yeah, it's been a very different experience to what I've experienced in the past. So I've done a number of different programs. I've been chasing weight loss for most of my life. And I've been with coaches who, we've discussed this before, have been quite militant in their style and haven't adapted to things that have been going on, whether that be injuries or just personal things where you don't have access to the same kitchen that you normally would. So coming into this, there were a few of my concerns. But, you've worked with me every step of the way. So I've been able to, if I didn't have access to a kitchen or, something was going on, I had a friend's party, you're like, no, go out and do this, send me the menu and you help me choose the right foods. Yeah, you worked with all my injuries because I have a number from over, the last 40 years of my life. I'm quite accident prone. Yeah. So, it's been a really good experience actually.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice to hear. And you've done so well. Like I said, Belinda has been one of my star pupils. She's just head down, bum up, gotten into it. I think, you've been in places with programs, coaches, whatever before that haven't worked for you to place that trust in me. And even when you had questions, like if I'm like, I want you to do this, and you would come back and go, so collagen is one. We love to add collagen in. It's great for inflammation. You still trusted me and said, okay, we'll go back and give it a go. Unfortunately, the collagen just doesn't seem to work overly well for you, but you still trusted. But one of the things we learned out of this is we definitely know that even different brands, all the rest of it, is just not something that sits well in your digestion. But just because that's one of the things I really love to see people have, I have to meet you where you're at and teach you to find what works for you. Because if you don't learn what works for you and you can't learn to adapt be adaptable. So I'm adapting to you, but I'm only adapting to you so you know how to adapt when life crops up, because there's no point having an 8-week program that the minute you walk away, you don't know how to meet those calories. You don't know how to structure a meal. you don't know how to do quick, easy alternatives, travel, if you're going to travel, how do you make that work? Mindset on understanding it doesn't have to be 100% perfect all the time, having some flexibility. I know we're still working together. Belinda has another fat loss phase she'd like to do just to get her down to where she's really aiming for. And she's built some awesome muscle. So we would love to really reveal that. But moving forward, do you feel like, given you've been up and down, been with other people, do you feel like you're going to have the capability to walk away and manage yourself on your own?
I do, yeah. And look, one of my friends actually said to me, she goes, is this sustainable? When I was doing it, I actually took a minute to think about that. And I'm like, there's no reason why it's not sustainable, because it is, you're fueling your body, you're feeling good, you're exercising, which is making you stronger. And the reason also behind this is I was doing it to kind of eliminate the perimenopause symptoms that I'm going to start to experience, and I'd already started to experience a few, but I've seen a lot of my friends who are a few years older than me get some really bad symptoms. And so I thought, I'm just going to do this for myself. And I do feel it's easily sustainable. It's food, it's exercise, it's things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult. It's, you are calorie counting and tracking, but it's so basic. It's so easy to do. And the foods are readily available. As I said, I've got the exercise equipment here, so it's definitely something I can do. And it's just getting those hints and tricks around the travel, around, when life throws you a curveball, how do you adapt to it? It's just understanding those things which you've helped with along the way. And yeah, I definitely think it's going to be sustainable.
And look, you talk about, I think you're the sort of person that would probably track all the time anyway. I track most of the time just because that's my personality. But I also know that I can not track because I spent that time tracking, and you've spent that time tracking. I think that once you get to the place where you're happy and you go, I just want to sustain this, there's going to be periods of times where you don't need to track. People kind of go, I don't want to track forever, but you don't actually need to. Just spending that time to get to your goal actually educates you. You learn to look at portion sizes and understand what a portion size is. You know what foods agree and disagree with your body. You know how to put together a really well-balanced meal so you feel good and don't have energy slumps. And you know what calories sustain you as well. And I think that's really key, that knowing what your maintenance is. And then that, you might go away on a holiday or, get a little bit slack with the measuring and everything and start to go, yeah, things are tightening up. And that you could just go back to tracking, drop your calories a little bit, tighten up, and you're good to go again. It's something that you can flex when you go, but you don't necessarily have to. Once you get to where you want to be, you don't have to keep tracking forever.
Yeah. And yeah, I am kind of a little bit anal in that respect, that I do like to do it. I like to be precise, if it's 150 grams, it's 150 grams.
Yeah.
But, it is, I can see that point where I won't have to do that. And look, if I do find that things are moving in the wrong direction, I now know that I've got the skills to bring it back down. And I think that's the key, is because the skills at this age now are different to the skills when you're in your 30s and you're in your 20s. You've got to adapt to that. And that's the one thing that I wasn't doing before, was that I was treating my body like it was responding when I was in my 30s. And I'm not in my 30s anymore, so it's not going to do the same thing. And I think that was the key piece that I was missing. How do I do that as I get older?
Yeah. Yeah. And look,
lifting to failure, that was one thing that I had never done before. And I was in a program that I understand that is one of their guidelines, but I don't think my coach ever pushed it. So doing this, and you're watching the videos and you're like, no, you can do more. I'm like, really? Like I didn't get that.
I was hearing that from me. One more rep.
And I had never done that. I had never pushed myself before. And obviously during the deficit, I'm not doing that. But when I come out of the deficit, that's what I'll be looking to do again. And the reduced sets as well. So the whole combination is something that I've never done before. 2 sets at failure. It was a new way to work out, but the benefit is that you're not wasting your energy trying to keep that energy for the last set of 8, or 4 sets of 8 or whatever. You're not trying to keep it so you can make that last set.
I think it makes your program a lot quicker to get through when you're not doing all those sets. You just get in, bust out 2 sets, and you're done.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
not 2 sets per exercise, not 2 sets at the gym. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I just listen to you and it just, you know, you go, I know that if, you know, I wanted to pull my weight back a little bit, I can do that. How empowering, after years of yo-yoing and not being able to lose weight, how empowering that must be to go, you said it, I have the skills. So you're in control now. It's not your body that's out of control.
Yeah. And I think that this is the age now, and this is how my body's going to respond, obviously a little bit differently as I continue to get older, but I think that this is the way that I deal with my body and its responses, you know, for the next 30, 40 years. So, you know, as long as I maintain that muscle, and I have a lot of friends who keep asking me how I've lost the weight. And, you know, I explain to them that I'm eating a lot of food and I'm strength training. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, but why? You know, so they're like, no, I can't eat. Yeah. And they keep saying to me, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm eating a lot of salad. I'm not eating carbs. And I'm like, well, I've just gone the other way. But you know, you've got to want to have that. You've got to want to have that drive in you that you're ready to do it. And, you know, and maybe I wasn't ready to do it with my past trainer. I'm not sure. But, you know, I finally got to the stage where I was so frustrated with myself that, you know, I was just ready to take those reins and, you know, do the silly things that you told me. Eat brownies, eat carbs.
All
do
sounds
all of
so
those
crazy.
things.
Even
Exactly.
crazier when we say eat liver and oysters. So yes, you get to eat brownies and custard and all sorts of lovely things, but we do throw in some things like liver and oysters. There is a supplement version, people, if you don't feel like you can swallow them. You love oysters though, don't you?
I do. So yes, I have every Friday I go to the shops and I have my oysters and my fruit, and that's my lunch. So
yeah, yum.
Just programmed in and it's easy.
Yeah. But anyone listening, if you don't like oysters and liver and go, I couldn't do that, there is a supplement version that you can take, but full of so many good nutrients for particularly for perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. So with all of that, if someone was sitting on the fence and was like, I don't think I can do that, that's not me, what would be your advice?
My advice would be to reach out and actually have a talk to you, get a gauge of how you interact, because that was obviously a very big thing. You have to connect with your coach. And I think that was a very easy thing to do because, as I said, you're very adaptable and you're very willing to work with people as long as they're willing to put the time and effort in. So if you're stuck, if you're frustrated, if you're angry at yourself because you've let yourself go, reach out. You're not going to get anything other than an answer and potentially massive weight loss if you do go forward with it. So
awesome. And yes, please drop me a message in Instagram. I'm happy to talk to anyone and I'm happy to meet you where you're at if you want to just keep moving forward. It's been wonderful having you on. I'm excited for your next phase. We'll have to do a follow-up podcast when we've done our next phase, because after your next phase, you look smashing now. You will see her results come out on my Instagram as well. There'll be a post with her progress in there too. So you'll see how wonderful she's looking. But you have some awesome muscle mass on you and you're going to look rocking after the next phase. It's really exciting.
Can't wait. And I've got a beach holiday coming up in next year. So hopefully we'll be rocking that cozy.
You will be. You will be. I promise you will. So everyone, if you'd like to reach out to me, you can always drop me a message on Instagram. My handle is @strengthtraining.nutritionist. And if you got anything out of this podcast, please take a screenshot and tag me. And until the next episode.